Speaking of things that should have never been said, on Monday, the Democratic National Committee rejected an amendment to put a plank supporting marijuana legalization into the party's platform. This wasn't just like legislation to actually do it. This was just a plank in their platform calling for not an end to the war on drugs, just the legalization of weed.
Yep. Now,
Of weed.
Now, oddly, the vote came
Of
in at
weed.
came in at 50 to 106, or as some quick-minded people may have seen already or figured out really quickly, exactly the opposite contrast to how it polls in the country.
Yeah.
67%
60 something
say,
percent. Yeah.
yeah, 67% of the people say, yeah, it should be legalized. I can't do the math on that really quickly, but it's roughly 67%
60
of Democrats
something.
went, no,
Yeah.
we're not putting that on our platform.
Yeah. Of Democrats. This is 2020. This is the year where the authoritarian Republican President Donald Trump is in office, who has said in the past that he's even okay with it being legalized. And
And real
yet
quick,
go ahead.
to Jordan on YouTube, uh, just because he says she, I don't know, I apologize. Jordan says, I hate this argument. Just because you make it legal doesn't mean an employer will hire you using it even for recreational purposes. And no, they shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
That
And
is a
by the
choice that
way,
you make.
the reason it doesn't mean that, but it actually kind of does. And here's why, Jordan. The reason they're saying that you can't use weed is because they don't want to be legally liable for what happens that would not even have anything to do with you being on weed. But if you are on weed, it will be blamed for it. The government, the state and federal governments will blame it on that. And now you can be held liable in court much more easily because it wasn't just an employee doing something wrong. It was an employee on drugs doing something wrong. So no. Getting rid of those regulations doesn't instantly end that, but it ends the reason they're doing it in the first place. Companies aren't saying, man, I don't want my employees on weed because weed's bad. They're doing it because they're protecting themselves from liability. That's why they're drug testing. So you get rid of the liability from the fact that it's illegal, and yeah, it kind of does get rid of that.
Right. So 50 to 106. 50 said yes, let's put this as the plank. 106 said no, we don't want legalized weed. Now,
Weed, not the
weed.
war on drugs, not ending the war on drugs, which is what we should actually be talking about. Weed. Nearly 3/4 of Americans recognize that there's no reason for weed to be illegal.
Yeah.
This is the equivalent of Joe Biden being asked about nurses and saying something about how he gets up and a moving when people breathe into his nostrils. They were given a perfect opportunity. No, it really is if you think about it. Because just like that. Because if they were given a perfect opportunity to say, hey, we're the party of legal weed, and instead they said, no, we're overwhelmingly not the party of legal weed, meaning that there's only one party of legal weed, and that's Joe and me.